Manawaker Studios Flash Fiction Podcast is supported by patrons on Patreon. To find out more or to add your support for as little as $1 a month, visit patreon.com/Manawaker. Welcome to Manawaker Studios Flash Fiction Podcast. I'm CB Drogi. This week, Kind, by D.A. D'Amico. A family of Bao floundered nearby, struggling in the thick mucus ooze of the swirling river. Soma hesitated, transfixed by the fires illuminating the boxy stick-like bodies, their rake-like hands outstretched and pleading. "Keep moving, kiddo." Pavel pushed his son ahead. "Stay with the others." "They look so sad, Daddy. Can we help them?" "Never mind the Bosingo." Brilliant white flares ripped through high greenish clouds, leaving shredded wisps against the jaundiced sky. Rising fires lit the horizon. Pavel pushed forward, keeping pace with his two husbands and their children as the ground trembled with each strike. Small groups sloshed beside them, their shadows jerky and uncertain in the flickering light. "They know the way." "But they look stuck." The Bosingo bobbed in the water, caught on a sandbar. Mankind's accidental entry into their world had changed their ecology, disrupted their habits, and the Bosingo could not adapt. "They'll figure it out." Pavel glanced away, troubled. The unexpected biobloom made the tumultuous river difficult to cross, but they needed to find shelter in the caves before the skyfire reached the dry grass at the edge of town. The strikes were more intense this year, and a lot closer. It was the last of the great ship, the remnants of their ark breaking up in the system's tidal forces and plunging planetward. Pavel turned back in time to see Soma lose his footing and slide beneath the viscous fluid, arms flailing. He lunged. Oily flesh slid from his grasp. His heart pounded. Bitter liquid filled his mouth. He swallowed, gasping for air, gagging as he struggled to hold on, but Soma slipped away, lost in the dark waters. Strong arms dragged him up. His husband, Brace, held him as he struggled, pink-tinged mucus slime falling like drool back into the water. "Calm down. It's okay. He's safe." "Leave me!" Pavel jerked away, turning angrily. Brace pointed. One of the larger Bosingo had scooped Soma from the water, holding the boy above the swirling ooze in long, gracile arms. Soma didn't appear hurt, but he fidgeted against the thin yellow-orange bodies, his hands sliding squeamishly over greasy proto-feathers. Pavel panted, gobs of gelatinous biomass slithering down his body. His skin tingled, but he brought himself under control. Soma was safe. That's all that mattered. He inhaled deeply, then spat. The algae bloom, too alien to pose a threat to humans, tasted and smelled like moldy citrus. "Go on ahead." Pavel glanced at Brace, then back toward Soma. "I'll fetch him." "Are you sure?" Brace glanced nervously toward the Bosingo. "Get to the caves and keep the others safe. Go on." Pavel turned, pushing deeper into the opaque water, back in the direction of the growing fires. The Bosingo released Soma into Pavel's arms. He nodded at the creature. It blinked, wide violet eyes closing sideways like curtains over a wedge-shaped face. "Thank you," Pavel whispered. In the 12 years since the crash and humanity's first contact with the Bosingo, they'd learned little about the creatures. Infrequent communications consisted simply of hand gestures and a few hushed, repetitive sounds. Pavel backed slowly away. Soma clung to his shoulders, shivering as they left the Bosingo behind and joined the few groups still struggling to cross the river. Janie Vong, the colony's agriculturalist and de facto leader, stumbled by with her 2 daughters. They were among the last to evacuate. The young girls looking ghostly pale in the shadows thrown by the falling ribbons of flame. Soma hugged him close. "Can we help the Bosingo now, Daddy?" Pavel glanced at Janie. "What about it?" "I'm sorry, but humans first. Janey shoved her girls ahead, nearly sliding under as they struggled past. "We need to help our own people. There's too few of us, and plenty of them." Pavel frowned. It had always been just about the numbers with Janey. "Our people are doing fine." "Leave them. That's an order." "They helped me, Daddy." Soma twisted to look back, and Pavel nearly dropped the boy. "Do they have to be people to get saved?" "It's not as simple as that." Pavel pushed ahead, trying to put some distance between them and the agriculturalist. "It's just—" How did he tell his son colony policy made the Busain Go more expendable than humans? That sometimes you had to do bad things when you're confronted with a world not built for you? It had never sat quite right with him. The creatures were intelligent. They made tools. They had a complex society that included laws and morality, and they cared for their young. The Busain Go deserved at least a measure of deference. It was their world, after all. "Over here!" Brace waved, standing on the bank with a group of about 10 humans. He looked relieved, a smile playing at the edges of his thin lips. Pi, the final third of their triad, stood beside him, their other sons, Aiden and Tran, huddled in the shadows behind. Pavel set Soma down on the strange coin-shaped grass. He grabbed the boy's hand as they started walking up the sloping embankment, but Soma hesitated. "Daddy, if we won't help the Busain Go, doesn't that make us—" Soma stumbled on the concept. He was young, the world still painted in blacks and whites. "What kind of people does that make us?" Pavel knelt, glancing at the confused look in the boy's dark brown eyes. What lesson would Soma learn here today from Pavel's actions? What sort of man would he become if he were taught some lives had less value than others? Pavel looked at Janey, at the humans lining the embankment, then back at the Busain Go. He sighed. "You go on. Join the others. Tell them I'll catch up soon." Pavel stood, slowly rolling up his sleeves. "I have some people to help." This has been Kind, written by D.A. D'Amico, and originally published in Everyday Fiction. For more information about Manawaker Studios' other projects, including books and games, visit manawaker.com, which is also where you should go to learn more about the authors featured on this podcast or to get details about submitting a story. The Flash Fiction Podcast theme song is by Kevin MacLeod. Manawaker Studios' Director of Dice is Ben Baston. I'm CB Droege. You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook at CBDROEGE. Thanks for listening. On the next installment of Manawaker Studios' Flash Fiction Podcast, sometimes they were nice and sometimes nasty. Sometimes it was, "Show us your tail, blow some flames." And sometimes it was, "Go away, you're weird."